Hey, welcome back. This is going to be a glue tip overview. The glue tip is a very useful tool that can be found within Essential Tools, and it has 3 different modes. I'll give you an example of each different mode within this world that we're in here today, but I want to talk about the modes before we do that, just so that you're aware of what we're going to cover. So the glue tip can do, like I said, 3 things. The first thing it can do is glue stuff together. What gluing stuff together does is it will take any objects within a glue bubble, and I'll show you that in just a moment, and it will parent that to a new object called glued, and then make that glued object grabbable. So what this can do is it can sort of stick various objects together, but it doesn't change the mesh data or the structure of them. It just glues them together. It will remove the grabbable on them so that they're no longer grabbable, but it will add that grabbable component to the top of the glued object. You can see this being used a lot in a few cases, one of them being drawings that you do with the Neos brush system. There are some great artists within Neos that do a lot of drawing with the brush system, and they use the glue tip when they're finished with their drawing to sort of glue it together so that they can port it between worlds, etc. The second and third modes have similar names, so I want to make sure that you know the difference and that you don't get them confused. They are baked meshes even, and bake skinned meshes. So the easiest way to figure those out is to know the difference between a non-skinned mesh and a skinned mesh. So a skinned mesh is any mesh which has an armature or blend shapes or visemes on it. As an example here, my avatar has arms, legs, a chest, and an armature around it, which is what's posing it when I move around. So it's a skinned mesh. But additionally, my face here, which is separate, is also a skinned mesh. It does not have an armature on it, but it has shape keys and blend shapes, which is why it's moving and blinking when I talk. So that's the skinned mesh. A non-skinned mesh has none of that, so it's just a basic mesh. As an example here, the building that we're in, the room that we're in, this is the desert meeting space. This is a non-skinned mesh because there's no armatures and there's no shape keys. So that's the difference. Let's now show this in practice within the world. Let's hop over into Smooth POV. I'm also going to show you where the tool can be found. So if you go to your Essential Tools folder within your inventory, you'll see that the glue tip is in the middle here. It's just this sort of dark grey bottom with a slightly lighter grey top. Some of the older tools look like that, I know, but it's the one that's grey. And if you select it, you'll see glue tip here. When it's spawned in the world, it'll look like this. I've got one here that I spawned earlier, and we're going to go ahead and equip it, because equipping it will allow me to show you the context menu. So if I open up the context menu here, you'll see that we have the 3 modes that I talked about. So we've got parent objects, which is the glue mode. We've got bake meshes, which bakes the non-skinned meshes, and then bake skin meshes, which will bake skinned meshes. We're currently in the glue mode, so let's show how that works. So what I'm going to do here is create a couple of cubes, which will then glue together. So let's go ahead and create some cubes with the developer tooltip here. I'm going to go to create new 3D model box. There it is. Let's go ahead and shrink this down. So we've got a nice small box, and then we'll go ahead and create another box, and we'll shrink that one down a little bit differently and maybe turn it at an angle. There we go. So right now these 2 objects move separately, as in when I grab them, they move separately. But if I wanted them to move as one and call this, a creation of art or something like that, I could glue them together using this glue tip in this mode. So to do that, what I'm going to do is equip it, make sure it's in parent objects mode, walk up to it, drag, hold down primary and drag, and it will draw this kind of bubble. And this bubble doesn't need to encompass the entire object. It does need to touch the object and ideally be over some part of it. It's based on colliders and bounding boxes and stuff like that. So this will be good enough. So what I'm going to do here is let go, and this will cause that bubble to sort of pulse and wobble a little bit, and then it will vanish. And now these 2 objects are now glued together. So you can see I can't move them apart anymore. Let's take a look inside what's going on here. To do that, I'm going to equip the developer tooltip, aim it at one of the boxes here, push secondary, and then hit open inspector. And you'll see that we've still got the box which was created, but if I hit up 1 level on the inspector, you'll see that we're now under this object called glued. And that's where everything is. That's also where the grabbable has been moved to. Both these boxes no longer have a grabbable component. The key thing to note here is that each of these boxes still has their individual properties, and they can still be edited. So for example, here if I select this box here, I could change its size to be 10, and then it'd be a lot larger. So that is the glue or parent objects mode, and let's now go to the bake meshes mode. So I'm going to re-equip my glue tip here, and I'm going to change it to bake meshes. This will change the color of the tip a little bit with a highlight, but I just double check the context menu because I'm a little bit colorblind as well. So now that we're in the bake meshes option, what we can do here if we want to bake these things together is we can go up to where it says glued here, and we can grab the word glued, and you'll see glued appears here, and then we can hit the secondary action button, And you'll see that now they flashed for just a second, and now they're baked as an actual mesh. So now when I inspect this, and I open the inspector, you'll see that we've lost both those boxes, and we're now down to just a static mesh. If I pull this static mesh out here, and just grab this and push it to the side, you'll see that we've actually got geometry data that's been written in a mesh format here, rather than them being glued together. This is now an actual mesh. If I exported this from Neos, which you can do, I'd be able to edit it in Blender or another application, and I would see these exact same triangles and data. One of the things to note about the glue tip when you're baking meshes this way is it doesn't do any sort of intersection, union, or difference, etc. You can see that by when I grab this and pull it out, you'll see that the triangles for the box that has intersected the bigger box still continue. So it's not a way that you can sort of cut down on triangles or cut down on mesh data. It doesn't do that. It just takes the mesh data and puts it within the same static mesh. So that is the bake meshes mode for you. The last one we need to do is the baked skinned meshes. For that, I'm going to go ahead and navigate to somewhere else in my inventory for a second. Essentials, or the root of my inventory is a mess. I can't show it off right now. Here we go. So now I'm inside Neos Essentials. We can go inside Avatars. If we go inside Avatars, we can go into Anthro, and then we can go to the Builder Yeen. Sorry, not the Builder Yeen. It's the Strapped Yeen by Cyphie. It's featured in the Builder Yeen world, but Cyphie made it, and it's based on work by DarnHyena. The reason why we're selecting this one is because it's a skinned mesh which has a lot of data on it that you can actually bake. And I'll show you what I mean here. So you'll see that this this hyena character here is wearing a nice top and some trousers. If I go ahead and inspect it though, and I head up to the root here, you'll see that if I go under meshes here, there's a lot of stuff here. For example, I can go ahead and turn on some armor. I could turn on some socks, and I can turn off the clothes and stuff like that. When you bake skinned meshes, this will convert all of this down into one skinned mesh. So for example, here you can see that the socks here are a separate skinned mesh from the armor, which is also its own skinned mesh. And again here, skinned mesh, it has blend shapes, it has a rig. There you go. So for the baking of skinned meshes, what we can do is, again, let's turn off the armor here because we'll just bake it as it is. Equip the glue tip here, change it to baked skinned meshes. You'll see this goes pink. I can actually see this color, so I know if it's in this mode. And again here, I'm going to go up to the top here, and I'm going to grab meshes. You'll see meshes appears here. I'm going to hit secondary. And it's now baked that down into one mesh. Let's find that. There it is. Nope, that is the... Strange. I don't really know where the body is anymore. Maybe it's inside there. Anyway, it's now one skinned mesh. Might be in here, perhaps. No, it's definitely all in there. The thing to note with skinned meshes is that they only make sense when they have the armature attached. So for example here, when you look at a skinned mesh without a skin on it, it will look sometimes like that sort of clumped up state, and that's because everything's kind of at its default position until the armature is applied. So everything here is still working, but it's now one skinned mesh. The reason that you might want to do this is for performance, really. It's easier for Neos to render one skinned mesh rather than multiple skinned meshes. So if you look at the Builder Yeen world, also the Build Ananachi world, and indeed the MTC avatar creator where you can create the Neos bot avatar, there'll be a finalize or bake button there, and what that does is it bakes the meshes using logics. That'll be a slightly different tutorial where we talk about baking this using logics, but it is similar process, is in you select the route that you want to do and you pass it to a logics node and then it bakes it. So that is the glue tip for you. I hope that's been helpful. I'll see you next time. If you have any questions on the glue tip, do drop them below and I'll get back to you. Bye-bye.